Well, if you think paying your taxes was painful this year, good luck next year. The alternative minimum tax is set to wreak havoc on 23 million taxpayers unless Congress acts soon. It's expected to hit taxpayers the hardest this current tax year in states such as New York, Ohio, Connecticut, New Jersey, and California, where the combined state and local tax burden is between 12 and 14%. We are following your hard-earned money tonight. John Fund is a columnist at OpinionJournal.com. He wants Congress to get rid of the AMT immediately, and Republican Congressman Reynolds has a bill on the table which would temporarily tackle this stealth tax. He's on the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman Reynolds, let me start with you. How would your plan stop this tax in its tracks, at least this year?
Well, first of all, I agree with John Fund, who's on tonight with me, and that is let's get away with eliminating the stealth tax, as I call it, once and for all. But the legislation I put in is a one-year patch like the legislation I put in last year to make sure that more middle-class Americans aren't caught up in this terrible tax I call the stealth tax, which they don't even know they're subject to having to pay until their accountant tells them, you now owe AMT tax, which can be thousands of dollars more than they ever anticipated.
I don't know if there was a stopgap measure in last year. I'm hearing a lot of people complaining that they're subject to this right now. It seems like it's not working. John,
no,
what
Melissa,
do you think?
We actually did a stopgap last year. It was passed about 414 to 4 in the Congress, and the Senate passed it. The president signed into law to prevent middle class from coming, but it was only for 1 year, and that was for 2006. And the reason I put the legislation now, if we don't do a permanent resolve of getting rid of AMT, we'll need to do a one-year patch again this year, which is a cost
of $50 billion. John, what do you think?
Melissa, I call this the Venus flytrap of taxes. If we don't do something, it's going to eat all of us alive. This tax was created in 1969, the year of the moon landing, to catch 21 millionaires who weren't paying enough taxes. It's now going to hit 23 million of us. Now, obviously, the problem in Congress is these pay-go rules, which say if you're going to reduce one tax, you either got to cut spending or you got to raise other taxes. Well, as far as I can see, the current Congress isn't interested in cutting any spending whatsoever, and they're going to pretend that they're not going to cut taxes. They're just going to let the Bush tax cuts lapse. The current policy is going to drive this country into a recession because we're going to have the tax increases that are baked in the cake with the ending of the Bush tax cuts. The markets are going to preempt that by, I think, reacting negatively. And we have the AMT tax that's going to swallow up more people. This is a train wreck we're heading towards.
Congressman Reynolds, what about the fact under your bill, I mean, wouldn't about 4 million taxpayers this calendar year still have to pay the AMT?
Well, they do, and I'm opposed to it. 1999, I voted and sent to the president permanent repeal of the AMT tax. President Clinton vetoed it. John has said this well. This was put on. It does not have an index. It will engulf more middle-class Americans every year unless we get rid of it. And I want to see a permanent repeal of the AMT.
So let's do it. Why aren't we seeing that?
Well, ma'am, I'm certainly supportive. Charlie Rangel, the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, has said it's a top issue for him. He has put Richard Neal, the Democratic chairman of the Select Revenue Measures Subcommittee, in charge of the hearings. We've had a number of hearings in March. I'm all for repeal, but I do not want to raise taxes to get that done.
John, you said it before, but it bears repeating because it's so incredible to me. It was created in the 60s to catch less than 24 rich guys. It's now out of control. I mean, how would you solve this problem today?
Well, I think we have to recognize that the federal government is way too big. Under both parties the last few years, we had spending go out of control, and a lot of it had nothing to do with 9/11 or Homeland Security. So if we just put the federal government on a diet, if we just had the increase in the budget tied to population and inflation growth, we could afford getting rid of most of the AMT tax and practically all of it in the next couple of years. But the Congress has to curb its spending appetites as well. If we have more taxes, we can throw this country into a recession.
Congressman Reynolds, what's the likelihood that Republicans and Democrats will come together and any of this will happen?
Well, I predict that my legislation will pass at least for a one-year stopgap. I'm hopeful that we can see a solution. John has put one on the table of less spending, which is certainly something I think we can look at as part of the solution.
John, what do you think? Final thought.
I'm afraid these pay-go rules, which say if you're going to reduce the AMT, you have to either raise taxes or cut spending, are going to lead to just a one-year patch. That creates uncertainty, that creates market turbulence, and that means of a higher chance of a recession.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Thanks so much.